some sort. People looked up, not quite knowing what this was at first. It resembled a vapor trail from a commercial airliner. It looked like a meteor in the bright, clear daylight of central Texas. And then when word started to spread that the Shuttle Columbia had been on its way back to Earth, we realized the truth. It stayed together, intact, as a solid but flaming piece of wreckage, as you see, only breaking up into multiple pieces as it neared the end of its trajectory. We have reason to believe that human body parts have been found. We have reason to believe the debris field here is vast and extensive, going on perhaps over several hundred miles. We have been warned all throughout this day by officials in a position to know that people should not go near these pieces of debris, and some of the larger pieces are being photographed. These pictures have been fed back to us by our NBC station in the Dallas area. This was found, as you see, in a highway median strip, one of, we've been led to believe, the larger pieces to have survived the flaming re-entry. NBC News Chief Science Correspondent Robert Bazell joins me, as he has all morning, here in our New York studios. Bob, what can you add to the coverage so far of this?
Well, Brian, we're waiting, of course, for the NASA news conference, which might give us our first hints of what went wrong. And I think as we prepare for that, it's not a bad idea to think about what happens when the space shuttle routinely comes back to Earth from orbit. It's orbiting high in space. They fire some rockets, it's called a burn, that slow it down enough so that it starts to fall into the atmosphere. When it hits the atmosphere, like all space vehicles do, enormous amounts of heat build up on the shield. Now, the space shuttle has a series of tiles on it to protect against that heat. In the past, there's been trouble with those tiles falling off, and there's always been the fear that if tiles did fall off, if sufficient tiles fall off, it could lead to a catastrophic accident because the heat could burn through into the space capsule. Again, we don't know that that's what happened today. That's one of the things that's been talked about, though, as a potential problem on re-entry in the past. As the shuttle heads for the landing strip, we talk about it as an airplane, but it's not an airplane in the sense that it has engines. The engines that lifted it into space stopped firing altogether, and the space shuttle becomes a glider, even though it's traveling at 12,000 miles an hour and slowing down very quickly as it heads for the Kennedy Space Center landing strip. It has no power to make it go anyplace. It just goes slower and slower. It does, however, have auxiliary power units on board, which are engines that raise the elevons, move the rudder so that it can be steered, so that it can head for the airstrip that where it's intended to go. There are emergency plans on landing, but the emergency plans all have to do with something happening to make the space shuttle not head for the right runway, because it's a glider. It's got to come down. It can't go back up again. So there are several other emergency sites. Airports in the area are always alerted that the shuttle might have to land there if something goes wrong. Nothing like this, of course, is anticipated because this was a catastrophic failure. It looks like, and we're all speculating, it looks like some kind of explosion. It could have been an explosion of rocket fuel on board. It could have been a structural failure. It's always the sort of things that we consider when we see a terrible air crash. There's always this long list of things: structural failure, mechanical failure that causes the fuel to explode. All those things are possibilities. The people at Mission Control, within seconds of realizing that they had lost the data from the Space Shuttle Columbia as was coming in, were told to preserve the data, to make sure that nothing got lost. That was the first steps that they took, so that it all can be reanalyzed very quickly. Now, it could be, as we've pointed out this morning, and as Jay Barbie has been pointing out from Cape Canaveral, that it could be that somebody looking at a piece of data saw right away that something went wrong immediately and has a clue. It could be that everything was destroyed very quickly. So we won't know how long the investigation will unfold, but there's an enormous amount of information that's already on the ground at Mission Control in Houston that's called telemetry, enormous amounts of information that flows down from the Space Shuttle Columbia as it heads toward the Earth. So we could get a clue very soon today as to what went wrong. It could take a while. It will certainly take a thorough investigation. The investigation in this matter will be extraordinarily detailed, of course, because this is the kind of a catastrophic failure that